vice principal, former vice principal, senior officials from the Gokhale Education Society, which is our parent organization, esteemed colleagues and friends, all our guests of honor, Mr. Lalan Dinku, Deputy Superintendent Gopika Jahagirdar, PI Dhanashri Karmarkar, Parth Bhave, Rachel Peace, Sanyukta Bua, Chinmay Dhawale, and Lorenzo Berio. I request you all, wherever you are, to maintain silence for a while in order to pay homage to those who have lost their lives during and directly or indirectly due to this looming and gloomy crisis. Good morning to the Americans, the Canadians, and the US citizens who have joined us just after the stroke of the midnight, and also to the Europeans, Africans, and Asians. And good afternoon to our guests from Australia. Welcome everyone to this international webinar organized by Dr. T.K. Tope Senior Knight College, facilitated by our liberal, cooperative, understanding, who is an administrator with a human touch. Along with his own life, he has enriched many other people. I am one of those fortunate beneficiaries. Our college is located in Parel, surrounded by famous hospitals of KEM, Wadia, and Tata Cancer Hospital. Next to the famous Kamgar Maidan, it was famous during the freedom movement and the Sanyukta Maharashtra movement. And it is exactly located in the R.M. Bhatt High School building. Many of you can relate to the R.M. Bhatt High School building. We are together, though we are at distant places, in different time zones and still at the same time. We have participants from almost all states of India and a few countries outside India. The coronavirus disease, as we all now know, is a communicable respiratory disease caused by a new strain of coronavirus that causes illness in humans. Scientists are still learning about the disease and think that the virus began in animals, bats and the pangolin particularly. At some point, one or more humans acquired infection from an animal, and those infected humans began transmitting infection to other humans. Of course, there are many other theories. The disease spreads from person to person through infected air droplets that are projected during sneezing or coughing, or even while you talk. It can also be transmitted when humans have contact with hands or surfaces that contain the virus and touch their eyes, nose, or mouth with the contaminated hands. COVID-19 was first reported in China, but it has now spread throughout the world. After infection, many, particularly in India, remain asymptomatic and recover early. Others show a few symptoms such as fever, cough, sneezing, tiredness, but recover after symptomatic treatment and rest. And still others are not so fortunate, they succumb to death. In India, we began to challenge the crisis with a few steps taken right from the end of January this year. Our response changed as the situation went on changing. We did some experiments to increase positive energy. Then, during the first few days of the lockdown, there were news items lauding the clean environment because of the absence of two pollutants. All industries were shut down and there was no traffic on the roads. And then came the environmentalists who criticized these news items and said that they don't want a clean environment at the cost of human lives, lives lost due to job losses, hunger, heat, and other diseases. Here in India, jobless workers along their families consisting of elders and children walked more than 1,000 kilometers barefoot to their native places in remote villages from all megacities such as Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, Ahmedabad, and Surat. Then there was Arogya Setu and some related controversy whose significance was diminished by the prevailing circumstances. We heard some stories about the abduction of young girls on the highways. There must be many more unheard stories of injustice, unfair behavior, atrocities, and traumatic experiences involving politicians, administrators, medical practitioners, hospitals, police, businessmen, and all sorts of antisocial elements. These are unprecedented times in human history. Each one of us has gone through curious experiences and hardships. Different communities and countries followed different paths to counter the crisis. Some have utterly failed, others succeeded. Some say that USA and Brazil are paying for the initial negligence. UK suffered the consequences of oscillating between lockdown and no lockdown policy. Germany also faced hardships, though the number of affected people and actual deaths is less than other countries in the region. Finland is known as the prepper nation and made preparations actively to counter the challenge. The virus was capable of dodging for some times the otherwise successful use of information technology in South Korea. A claim was made that countries led by women came out clean or handled the crisis better. New Zealand, Finland, and Germany were the cases in point. The webinar attempts to discuss all these points from the common man's perspective, highlighting the common man's perspective and making it politically significant is one of the main objectives of this webinar. Parth Bhave from USA, Sanyukta Bua from Germany, Rachel Peace from Canada, Chinmay Dhawale from Australia, and Lorenzo Berio from Italy will talk about their respective national and personal experiences. Mr. Lalem Dinku, currently working with UNDP in Nigeria, Deputy Superintendent of Police Gupita Jahagirdar, now working in the UN Mission for Peace in South Sudan, and Police Inspector Dhanashri Karmarkar, currently working with the Mumbai Police, will provide their expert comments. Now, I invite Principal V.B. Rokde to deliver his welcome speech. Over to you, sir.
At the outset, I would like to thank the organization committee of the college who have taken active participation in organizing such a international webinar. I would like to thank the speaker, keynote address, as well as participants and the other members throughout the country. Today, the whole world is facing the challenges and struggling against COVID-19, we know. All over the world, there are more than 80 lakh cases have been reported. In India, total count is more than 1,50,000 active cases, and total count is 3,20,000. So this is a very serious issue. But a positive thing is that recovery rate is approximately 48%, which is a good sign and a relief for us. This chaotic situation is happened after Second World War. This public health problem encompass different spheres of our life, including education and even art and culture. But its economic effect is more serious, and our social life is tasteless now. Layman's life is in danger. Therefore, it was need is felt, and some of my colleagues suggested me to organize this type of seminar, and that's why we have organized it. I welcome all the participants and great personalities as a speaker, keynote address, and other members also for this seminar, webinar. Important thing is prevention, control, treatment, and also finding out proper vaccine are the key factors in this regard. As Professor Bua told earlier at the beginning of this webinar, the history of COVID-19, the COVID-19 was limited to Wuhan, China. It was epidemic. Now problem has created that the geographical spread turn into pandemic. So this is a now pandemic type of disease. So my request to all the participants that we have to stick up with the topic and listen carefully. Those who have sent their questions, the team of the webinar committee will address simultaneously, sequentially, and Professor Bua will do the necessary things in this webinar. I once again thanks and welcome to all the participants and respected speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So we are on the track now.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the keynote address now. So we'll start with the keynote address now. Mr. Lalem Dinku is the Deputy Resident Representative Programs for UNDP Nigeria Country Office since 12th August 2019. Before that, he has worked in Sudan from 2016 to 2019. From 2012 to 2016, he served in South Sudan. Prior to joining UNDP, Lalem served as country director of the International Institute of Rural Reconstruction, Ethiopia Country Office, from 1st August 1919 to 31st December 2005. Mr. Lalem belongs to our fraternity as he was a lecturer in Department of Management and Public Administration, Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia, from 1st September 1983 to 31st March 1993. As a lecturer, Lalem taught many courses, including Principles of Management, Organizational and Development, Organization and Management, Money and Banking, Operations, Research, etc. Lalem holds a BA degree in Management and Public Administration from Addis Ababa University and MA degree in Public Policy and Administration from Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, Netherlands. I invite Mr. Lalem to address the August gathering. Over to you, Mr. Lalem.
Good morning, colleagues. Good afternoon. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
You're audible.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, citizens of the world. My presentation is as Lalem, as an individual. I am not in any way representing the United Nations, but I am very happy to share our experience. I'm working in Nigeria and I'm in the forefront of fighting COVID-19, and my presentation may take maybe 7 to 10 minutes. Is that okay? First, I'd like to put basic facts about Nigeria. Nigeria is a population of 200 million, 65% below the age of 24. So you can see that it is a nation of young people. In terms of ethnic group, Nigeria has 250 ethnic groups speaking more than 500 languages. Nigeria got independence 60 years ago, and before the coming of COVID, we were preparing to celebrate Nigeria 60. So October 1st, 1960 is Nigeria's birthday. Religion, both religions are balanced around 45% each, Christianity and Muslim, and 10% practice indigenous belief. Territorial division of Nigeria, Nigeria has 36 states and 774 local governments. The health sector in Nigeria, before the coming of COVID, I would like you to note Nigeria has only 5 hospital beds per 10,000 persons, and along with shortage of doctors and nurses, inadequate infrastructure and equipment across the country, posing challenges in responding to the pandemic. So the Nigerian health sector was not as such strong. COVID-19 case development as of 13 June. Globally, as of 14 June, 215 countries are affected. Confirmed case of the virus 7.6 million, days over 427,000. That is globally. Nigeria, as of 14 June yesterday, the National Nigerian Center for Disease Control tested 92,000 people. Confirmed case 15,682. Discharged over 5,000, days 407. The impact of COVID on Nigerian health system, people, and economy. Do you hear me, colleagues?
Yes, yes. Clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. The coronavirus has spread all over the world, creating a huge global health crisis, disturbing every life of almost all global citizens. The scale of the spread of the virus and, more importantly, containment measures are having knocked down the spread of the virus. At the same time, the measures taken to control the virus has a knockdown effect on all economies around the world, including Nigeria, in 3 ways. First, it disturbed the value and the supply chain across the globe. So nothing is coming out, nothing is going as countries put the restriction of border control and so on. Especially in Nigeria, 65% of the government revenue is coming from the oil, so it resulted in drop of oil price, which created 40% loss in government revenue. The disruption of business, both formal and informal, affected the lives of millions of people, especially those who live from hand to mouth, like the vulnerable group of different kinds. The virus has also, in the case of Africa, in the case of Nigeria, where there is violent extremism, the government is battling with violent extremism in the northeast, where 3.5 million people are displaced. It has a great implication on peace and social cohesion. The economic impact of the pandemic cultivated condition for disgruntlement and social unrest. So the prevention measure undermines the way found, and the prevention measure, restriction, isolation, and so on came against the very fabric of society. Countries have to abandon their national day holiday, birthday parties, and so on and so forth. So it is affecting the very social fabric that is necessary to build society. Then specifically in the case of Nigeria, the outbreak has a big issue regarding refugees and IDPs. Nigeria is the home of 3.3 million IDPs. IDPs are internally displaced people as a result of conflict. So these people are living in a very crowded space, crowded location, and lack of space, which is very difficult to implement social distancing.
Sir, excuse me. Will you please start your video?
No, I don't have video.
Okay, you can continue.
So, especially what I'm saying is in an area where there is huge number of 3.5 million people, 500,000 people in one camp, implementing social distancing and separation restriction is very difficult. So this affects us. Strategy adopted by the government of Nigeria in fighting is a number of strategies. One, the federal government prepared its coordinated response. A presidential task force was established to lead this process. Then the government on March 29 announced total lockdown of the biggest city, Lagos, which is 14 million people, Abuja, 3 million people, and some of the states. This was extended later for 2 weeks, and by 27 April, the president announced phased out gradual easing of lockdown. So basically, the government has also established a stimulus package for businesses and other vulnerable groups, like, for example, distribution of cash transfer, food item, and so on for affected communities. In terms of Africa, as you know, has the weakest health system. So the pandemic has affected totally, overwhelmed the health system. Leave alone tackling such level of problem, the African health system has a problem tackling the normal basic service provision. So that is affecting. So how did Africa start fighting, or how Africa is dealing with the virus? African countries are focused on intensive surveillance and case finding, leveraging integrated disease surveillance and response framework. We have developed this integrated disease surveillance and response framework that was developed for, Nigeria experienced Ebola virus. So past history, past experience in fighting other diseases is helping the country to deal with this. Africa is also scaling up molecular testing across the continent has been impressive. Countries such as South Africa and Nigeria are leveraging integrated modular laboratory diagnosis capacity that exists before for Lassa, tuberculosis, Lassa virus, HIV, and so on and so forth. Then public health and social measures have also been implemented across Africa, like any other country. Closing of borders, introducing self-isolation, establishing center for quarantine. All these are experienced, but later we found out it is very difficult to keep on locking so long as the vulnerable group's interest is not addressed. Then Africa is also dealing with the gap in service provision by public health, the private sector, the UN, civil society organizations are filling some of the health gaps. And the other is innovation and technology, use of drones in some countries for distributing supplies. Unusually, the most important other thing is the open, frequent, and transparent communication For example, in Nigeria, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, every day 5 o'clock they issue the global trend and the trend in Nigeria. So this keeps people informed and it is good for decision making. What is the UN doing? The UN first, when in March we developed a joint UN strategy for supporting the government. Here we are in any country, there are 90 UN agencies. In Nigeria, in any country, the UN is not there to run this parallel system. We are there to support the government dealing with that. So we develop our support strategy. Then the presidential task force was established. In the 10 task force, the UN was represented in the various task force. For example, my organization was part of the coordination and resource mobilization. Then UNDP established a basket fund to urgently support the government in procuring COVID items. The major challenge has always been lack of test equipment, test kits, laboratory supplies, and so on. So the UN supported that. Then the 6 areas were supporting the government are urgent procurement of COVID-related items, risk communication, development of decentralized COVID-19 response at the state level, sub-national level, strengthening health service, and proactive socio-economic recovery, strengthening the social networking system, the social protection system, and economic impact assessment, where we did like 6 or 7 impact assessment, informing policy options, and helping the government to coordinate. In terms of long-term measure, I would like to summarize as follows. The long-term measure to avoid such eventuality require investment in forward planning and preparedness. The challenge for most of African countries was they were not prepared for such. Even if they were visited by Ebola virus, the scale and level of the coronavirus was really something which is a surprise, and they were not prepared to it. So preparation, investment in preparation is important. 5 areas. First, this is important. UN is dealing with what we call principle of leaving no one behind, an inclusive approach. So first, dealing with the health system. The coronavirus has created opportunity for African health system to rejuvenate. Huge investment is happening in Africa. Most of African leaders and their rich people, they are traveling to India and traveling to Dubai and so on to attend their medical issue. Now, because of restrictions, they have to struggle with their own health system. So, the health system, investing on the health system, strengthening it, doing health analysis, helping vulnerable group, and building robust health system. You know, while we are fighting coronavirus, don't forget there are also mothers and children who are looking for the regular services. That is important. Second, protection of people. Scale bank, one of the experience of Africa, especially Nigeria, shows that unless and otherwise we invest in safety nets, social protection mechanism, cash transfer, food distribution, it is very difficult to look for longer period of time. So strengthening social protection, then economic recovery. This is very, very important. The third one is economic recovery. Strengthening local production and business continuity. Strengthening local production of masks and some testing kits. Strengthening the private sector role in development. Skill development, environmental resilience. This is important. Then social protection, social cohesion. Sorry. As I said, this virus came on the very foundation of society. It is attacking togetherness, it is attacking harmony, it is attacking social cohesion. And the measures are like that. So social cohesion and human security is important. Effective governance is important. Human rights, looking at human rights is very important. In Nigeria, experience shows that sex and gender-based violence has increased as a result of the disgruntlement and as a result of this lockdown effect. So in conclusion, the overarching objective is to support the government of Nigeria to build back the country's socio-economic system better, not only to meet urgent needs, but also set a strong foundation for future development. Whatever we do in the UN is related to protect the achievement so far on sustainable development goals, which the global community would like to achieve by 2030. Undertaking this will require cohesive efforts to ensure a holistic and unilateral support, including the robust partnership with development partners, international financial institutions, the private sector, philanthropic institutions, as well as civil society, academia, the media to support the government, state and local communities. Our collective support in the socio-economic front, protecting people, economic recovery and macroeconomic stability and social cohesion will help to rebound and rebuild toward this post-pandemic future that enhances the well-being of all with no one left behind. Finally, what I'd like to say is one country fighting and getting rid of coronavirus does not help. It is a global pandemic. Even the global communication system, even the globalization, even if a country cannot protect itself unless it also try to help other countries. I stop here. Thank you very much for the chance you gave me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your contribution. Mr. Dinku, from the brief history of Nigeria, its social system, problems with the health system, then problems with the technology, surveillance technology they faced. They had earlier faced the Ebola virus problem, so he talked about that also, and stressed upon scaling up the testing facilities. Quarantine centers were established. UNDP has established a basket fund. Many other nations have contributed to UNDP's basket fund, and that has helped Nigeria very much. So thank you, Mr. Dinku, for the keynote address. We have our next guest in the panel, Deputy Superintendent of Police, Gopika Jagirdar. A few words about her and then she will start. In September 2019, 5 women police officials were conferred the UN Medal for their commendable services in the world body's mission in South Sudan. They protected the lives of millions of civilians. Deputy Superintendent of Police Gopika Jagirdar, working as the head of the crime against women and children for Maharashtra state, was one of them. In August 2019, she was honored with the President Medal. She is currently working in South Sudan, representing India in the United Nations Peacekeeping Force since April 2019. Over to you, Jagirdar Madam. By the time Jagirdar Madam is connected, we'll start with the personal experiences. We'll start with the Americans. As I said, they are here just after the stroke of midnight. The Canadian lady, Rachel Peace. She stays in Regina City in Canada. She works as a social media specialist in Harvard Media. She completed her studies in journalism in the University of Regina in 2017, a fresh graduate. She organizes media campaigns for our organization and understands the nitty-gritties of ubiquitous and ever-evolving, engulfing world of social media. So over to you.
Okay,
hello everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. I'll keep my section short because it's getting late over here. It's almost 1 a.m. So I'll first talk about the cases in Canada. So right now we have 38,515 active cases, but the Saskatchewan province that we're living in only has 665, and the city that we're living in only has 2 active cases right now. So we're pretty fortunate to live in a smaller city that we're not hit so hard compared to the larger cities. And the way that everything has kind of been going, we haven't been on a lockdown or anything like India has or other countries. They kind of just, the government's closed everything down right away. So we weren't able to go out or go shopping or go to restaurants or anything like that, but we were still able to go outside and walk around the block. So that really helped keep our sanity. And as well as, you know, we tried to do things to keep busy at home. Like we watched like YouTube videos, like exercise videos. I started a blog and playing around on Instagram more to get better at my job. So that's kind of a little bit about how COVID has like affected us over in Canada. Specifically for like a personal experience, so Rob and I were supposed to get married this July, so we had to postpone our wedding for a whole year. We've been working pretty hard on it, so that was kind of difficult, but you know, there's people that are facing worse problems than that. So we'll look forward to having a wedding next year and possibly coming to India. I don't know if the airports ever open up. So yeah, that's kind of my experience. I just wanted to say thank you for including me and asking me to speak on part of this and for organizing this. It's really awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So there were no lockdowns and all precautions were taken. Videos and exercise videos. Even I have done that.
Yeah.
Started exercising.
Yeah.
When lockdown is over, we'll come in a different shape.
Back to the gym.
Yes. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next guest. Next speaker, Parth is now working as a senior software engineer. JP Hunt Transportation Services Corporation in Noble City of Arkansas, USA. He has been there for the last few years. Son of our talented, multifaceted, versatile, sensitive, subtle, and insightful former Vice Principal, Dr. Anjali Bhagat. Like a list of words, it will be time consuming to mention a long list of her academic qualifications. So I avoid that for the time being. She retired in January. Parth has a command over the English language and has a versatile, caring personality, and particularly has an eye for detail. Over to Parth. Hello, Parth.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'll try to keep this short as well. I live and work in Lowell, Arkansas, which is a much smaller city here in the US compared to, say, New York City. And we have a much smaller population and lesser population density compared to some of the larger US cities where there have been a large number of COVID-19 cases. This is until recently. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, there has been a sudden spike in the cases. We never really had a full lockdown or stay-at-home order ever since the pandemic started. Only businesses and restaurants were closed in our area. Um, Recently, we have started opening up the businesses, and there has been a spike in cases. Um, we started working from home around mid-March, and this has been a unique experience. This is the longest ever that I have worked from home. Um, some of the challenges that I find with working from home are uh, communicating over online meetings is much difficult in some ways, like we are seeing right now, um, compared to meeting in person. It's not very easy to gauge the emotions and urgency with which a person is conveying their thoughts. We try to compensate for this by asking clarifying questions, taking a pause when something is not clear, and sending out short notes before a meeting. One of my colleagues recently expressed a concern about going back to work after the pandemic, that she has a little bit of difficulty with hearing, and it might be more difficult for her to work and meet with people in person rather than doing so through online meetings. So that was an interesting perspective I learned about. Uh, there are some advantages that I've seen also to working from home. Mainly, there is a lot of time saved from people stopping by for unproductive, non-work related conversations, and time is also saved by not having to commute to work, and I can spend that time better with my wife after all the work is done for the day. Um, with that, we recently started opening up the businesses. As I said earlier, there were never any strict orders to stay at home or even wear masks. The law has been very liberal here, and to some extent, people have misused some of these laws by gathering in large numbers for parties, and that has led to a spike in the COVID-19 cases in our area. Uh, there is also a large poultry industry in our city with a lot of migrant workers who are unfortunately not able to work from home, and many of them have gotten COVID-19, uh, which is really sad. So I will. Luckily, there's another thing here in our area is which is because of the low population density, we are able to go for walks outside, and that is a very nice thing which I'm really grateful for. Um, I will conclude by saying that being able to work from home is really a luxury in today's situation, and it's not something everybody is able to afford. Uh, so, uh, recovery in terms of both the pandemic and economic recovery will be possible, but it will be slow, but it will be possible only if those of us who can work from home reasonably exercise safety guidelines and enable other people who cannot work from home to stay safe. So I'll conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Partha. So working from home and working online, both are the two things. As we get into that, we face many difficulties. Difficulties started cropping up. So we have to face it, adapt ourselves to all these things. So Partha also said that he had leisure to stay home and to spend time with his wife and family. So thank you, Parth. We move on to next present Lorenzo Pelio. Lorenzo is a good friend. We have spent a lot of good time together along with our families. He is in the early 80s, still very active participating practicing as a business consultant. He owns an independent consultancy. He's an avid traveler, often visits India, likes to experiment with places, and knows details even about infrequently visited destinations in India. Over to you, Lorenzo.
Can you listen me?
Yes.
Yes, because there are some noise in the, and I thank you much the organizers for this conference that is very interesting because to exchange the experience of different countries is very good in this moment, because every country have some difficult point and some better point. And so in Italy was in Europe the first country with a very big raising of the coronavirus before the other countries of Europe, Germany, Spain, French, and in Italy the infection of virus was very strong in the north of Italy, and the lockdown was very long, and people was from one side respecting very well the lockdown. Everyone was stay at home, and from other side there was a very strong police and control on the movements outside. And this was the first time, maybe this was also posing some problems about respecting the freedom and the laws, and from the other side was necessary this. So this is a point to see for the future, because also now there is a control on people with and an application you can put in your phone, and you are checked where you are, and if you contact other people have the infections. So they guarantee that the privacy is respected, but this is a point to see. One point important to as experience in Italy is that the infection was rising very fast, because also the healthcare system was not ready to contrast the infection for different reasons. One was the reduction from the state of the people working as medical system in the last years. And the second point was that a lot of hospitals were more private hospitals. The third point was that the doctors, in the country, not in the hospital, was also reducing. And so the people infected was going very fast to the hospitals, not was taking care of them at home. And so the hospital was going to be in some way the point where the infection was diffusing. Now the infection is very reduced in Italy, very, very fast. We are going out of this problem of the coronavirus. And I hope that this lesson will be useful for having a different way to take care of the health, and that the situation of the hospitals and doctors will be better organized. One point interesting now is for Italy is the point of the economic situation after the virus, because in some way the state was giving money to people that was not working, both in the factories and also the private workers. For this period, the money was done, but there is not yet a plan for making again the economy going out of the crisis. So the problem is not now, but probably in the next months, how to start again the economy. On one side, I see that it is going to make investments in the companies directly. That was not more in the panorama of the Italian economy, and but checking the difference with other countries as Germany, for example, Italy is very late on this economy plans for going out of the crisis. So a lot of people is unemployed now, and at the moment there are some intervention of the state for survival, but not very good plans for the future at the moment. So this is a point, I think, one of the more important.
So thank you very much, Lawrence.
So it was very short, and I hope this will give you some point to go deeper later. Thank you.
The main point was the system was not ready for many reasons. Yes, that has happened in the countries. All countries have suffered. Even the superpowers, USA and USSR, or USA and Russia now, even both these big countries, Brazil, Spain, all have suffered. And the economic situation is the major problem now. How to start the economy is the major problem. Yes, you made many significant points. Thank you. Now,
Thank you to you.
yes, thank you. We move on to Chinmay Dhawale, another enthusiastic personality, always cheerful. He started off as an ethical hacker in India and now works as a senior information security analyst, Cubic Transportation System Australia in Brisbane. Besides his personal experiences, he may throw some light on the contact tracing apps. Of course, it may be a subject for a separate seminar or, say, webinar. So over to you, Chinmay.
Thank you very much, Shubhraj sir, for lovely introduction, and thanks very much for having me once again. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm as Shubhraj sir said, I'm based in Brisbane, but lucky enough to move to here just before the COVID-19 pandemic started. So, I was in Sydney before, and December 2019 I moved to Brisbane because I got job with Queensland government, and I was working with, so managed to escape the lockdown and the borders restrictions because of COVID-19 situation. So like all of us, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I'll just try and break down my experience from personal and the government perspective. So as we speak, we have total 7,320 cases, reported cases in Australia, out of which 6,838 patients are recovered from COVID-19. Unfortunately, 102 people lost their lives to COVID virus. And in Queensland, out of 7,000, there are 1,065 cases reported till date, and patients are under treatment and getting recovered. In personal experience, it was kind of a mixed bag for me because I was working for Queensland government, and came to me that my contract is about to end because of budget concern, and I had to look for the new job. And it was during the peak time of COVID-19, where majority of the Australians and people all around the world were losing jobs. And I had to look for the job, and luckily Cubic, which I'm currently working with, was kind enough to offer me a permanent position as a senior analyst, and I joined the company. But I only on the first day of joining, I went to office, collected my laptop and all stuff which I needed to work from home. And since then, I've been working from home. It's almost 3 months now. I have met my colleagues over the meeting only. I haven't met anyone face to face. I'm just at my office, but no one is there. I had to do some work, so I'm in office, but I haven't met anyone yet. So it's kind of different experience, but lucky to keep my job because official numbers came from Australian government is more than 200,000 uh, personnel or people lost their jobs because of the COVID-19, because major industry was impacted was tourism or travel industry, which is a base of Australian economy. So that impacted due to COVID virus because of international border closures, domestic border closures, and hard restrictions been placed from Australian government to contain the spread of the virus. So whenever people were coming to Australia, they were screened at airport, temperature checks, checks for any symptoms for COVID-19. That has been done. If some doubts in that, they have been put in 14 days quarantine, mandatory quarantine, and government is actively or was actively tracking the people who are in quarantine to know, so that can contain the virus. And along with that, another strong measures taken by government was they set up testing centers for COVID. So that's why Australia reported highest number of testing of COVID, which is close to 2 million tests so far. So uh, that record Australia has, and lucky to get it tested free of cost, and the treatment is under free of cost from the government because of the global pandemic. So that's the benefit we got. But during that, the uh, panic buying happened. You all of you must have heard people started buying the toilet paper or groceries, or they started stockpiling. There were chaos in the supermarket. So that also government look after and restricted how to buy and what to buy. People who were more vulnerable, such as elderly people, were given special permissions to come early so they can buy stuff. They are not starving or they are not lacking any essential stuff to take care during COVID situation. School, colleges, public gathering, even also the gathering inside the house were completely banned, and which is strict enough that many of people end up paying heavy fines uh, for not abiding to laws. If I say heavy fines, that's close to 5 to 6 lakhs Indian rupees if I had to literally convert the currency, which is 10 to 15,000 Australian dollars. So those were the strict measures and isolation that have been forced to every other person in the country. Transport was shut, trains, buses, ferries, even also the walking was not allowed during the peak situation. If you want to go for a walk, not allowed. Maybe you can just roam around your front yard or backyard, specific time allocation to do anything. So those were the strict measures were applied, and we were forced into isolation. That's why Australia was able to contain the number of cases. And slowly the lockdowns or the rules are being lifted off. We are now allowed to go outside. Number of gathering, how people can gather It's now up to 20 people slowly, but main emphasis or focus was on three main things. First, maintain your hygiene, keep safe yourself, use sanitizers, hand sanitizer, and wash your hands every time precisely for 20 seconds. Maintain social distancing 1.5 meters from each other and isolate yourself. So these three important measures was everyone was forcing, and government applied. And finally, the Subhraj sir said the tracking app. Australian government came up with the COVID-19 app, so everyone was forced to install, turn on the Bluetooth, or if you want to go out, if you want to go shopping, just turn on. So if by coincidentally or unfortunately, if you're in touch, get in close contact with the COVID affected person or symptoms that person has, you shall be notified, and with full privacy, data privacy, no one's name will be there. So all based on the privacy laws was taken care, and the app was released. So I still have that app installed. I use it whenever I'm going out. So yeah, to summarize, just please take care of yourself, of your family, maintain social distance, maintain social hygiene, and yeah, you don't have to worry about COVID situation. Follow the basic rules, and you're all good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 7,320 cases, and out of which 6,838 recovered. Hello, Rasal sir, please mute your sound. So 7,320 cases and 6,838 recovered. That is a good number. But still, you have problems, job losses, quarantines, and quarantines, basically isolation. Isolation is very difficult. But you talked about taking care for the elderly. And also there was one more thing. In India also we experienced that heavy fines. People have paid in different ways here, not only in monetary form. So thank you, Chinmay. And
Thank you.
we come to the last participant, Sanyukta Bua. Sanyukta completed her graduation in economics from Ruparel College, Mumbai. While in college, she was attached to AFS, American Field Service, an international NGO running student exchange programs all over the world. She completed a C1 level course in German language conducted by the Max Muller Institute. After graduation, AFS gave her an opportunity to work for the German branch in Hamburg. Currently, she is working in an old age home as a volunteer. She has a lot to talk about German experience. Over to Sanyukta.
Hello, thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are in the world. I am Sanyukta Bua, and I am living in Hamburg since September 2019. I was here, I came to Hamburg on a federal voluntary program of the German government, and I was working with AFS, which is an organization, and it conducts student exchange programs all over the world. But because of the COVID-19 crisis, in March, AFS was also hit very badly. The student exchange programs were naturally cancelled for the cycle coming up because traveling restrictions, and it did not seem safe for students of such a young age to spend a year in a different country. And naturally, because of that, AFS was financially hit very badly. They could not keep their employees occupied, or they did not have enough jobs since everything was cancelled. And I was just an intern. I was not an employee with a permanent contract. That's why I lost my job at AFS. It was, I had already started working from home in the month of March, but within a week, I received the news that I have also lost my job. And it was a difficult period. say until the end of April, because April was the peak month in Germany where the infection rate was very high. And I started looking for new jobs. Unfortunately, under the same government program, I found another job, and I work in the administration of an old age home now. If I don't have direct contact with the old people because they are so vulnerable at this point. But I still feel very safe to be in the same building as so many old people because I must say this: Germany's strategy of dealing with this crisis has been very impressive. And we have a few advantages to ourselves because Germany was not the first country in Europe to be hit by the virus. Germany had enough time to prepare itself because Italy was hit, Spain was hit, and Germany took the uh, the disease very seriously right from the beginning. And after seeing what is happening in Italy and Spain, the healthcare system, they increased the number of beds, they increased the capacity of their ICUs immediately. And because of that, we were never overburdened with the number of patients. So to an extent where Germany has so much capacity now that they are accepting people from France and Italy who cannot be treated in their own countries because those countries are overburdened. And I think I live in Hamburg, which is the second biggest city in Germany. And the numbers are, as of yesterday, when I checked, there are 5,143 cases which have been recorded until yesterday in Hamburg, out of which 4,800 cases have been completely cured. So there are nearly 300 running cases right now, which seems like a big number for a city, but it is also because the testing number is extensive. It is very high, and Germany is well equipped with laboratories, and they have been testing extensively, which has helped in ruling out the possibilities of the infection spreading further. And on average, in Hamburg, we have nearly 4 cases increasing every day, which is already looking a lot better, because of which the restrictions are also easing out. We never had a lockdown per se. We were always allowed to go out, but there was a restriction on the number of people gathering together. Initially, it was 2, then it increased to 3. Now, 10 people can gather together in public places, but they must be only from 2 households. So, and the public transport is still running. It was never shut down. Wearing masks is compulsory. The German government makes sure that everyone is well informed. Even on their websites, you can find guides on how to make masks yourself if they run out in the stores. So I think the government is doing all they can to keep the citizens well informed, and the citizens are also acting responsibly and are understanding the severity of the situation. The COVID-19 crisis is not just a health crisis, it is also an economic crisis, and we know that the unemployment rates have risen everywhere. In Germany, the unemployment rate is also rising, but the government is taking incredible measures to cope up with it. There is something called Kurzarbeit in German, which literally means short work. So I think it is an excellent solution. The employers are putting their employees in 50% work. So you only work for 50% of the time, which means that you are getting paid only half of your salary. But when you are put in 50% work, you can apply to the government for an unemployment allowance. And through that allowance, you still get 70% of your salary, which means you're working less and you're not losing all of your money. You're still getting 70%, which is already a very good amount considering what is happening in different countries where people are completely losing their jobs. Other than that, the government has also made it illegal for the landlords to demand rent from their tenants who are unable to pay or who just lost their jobs because of the situation. So the rent can be paid in installments until the end of 2022. So people are relieved because of that, and the government is also supporting many local businesses by giving loans. That is why people in general, the public is very relieved. Of course, there are problems because extremists feel that this is a violation of their freedom, not being able to gather in public, and there have been protests in big German cities. But they are also being brought under control by the police, and more people have been made aware that the government is acting out very it is doing the best it can, and it can only be helpful if the government has complete support of the public. And in conclusion, I would like to say that I feel very safe to be here, knowing that the healthcare system is very strong and the infection rate is decreasing, the curve is flattening. And I wish all of you all over the world also stay safe and take care of yourselves. Thank you for the organizing committee of TK Tope Night College for letting me share my experience. And yeah, take care.
Thank you very much, Sanyukta. So Germany had never had a lockdown. The public transport system was always running, but still you have the problem of unemployment. But you also said that the German government took very good supportive measures, and still there were protests. And now the situation is easing out. It is becoming more comfortable to live in. So thank you very much. So before proceeding to Police Inspector Dhanashri Karmarkar, I want to ask Gopika Jahagirdar Madam once more, because she is there. I can see her name here. If you would like to speak now, Jagirdar Madam. She is in the field in South Sudan, which is a war-torn country. So maybe she is facing some difficulties, technical difficulties. She is there on the panel, but she is not able to communicate. So we'll look after it after a while. So now continue with the next speaker, Dhanashri Karmarkar, a magnificent personality, I can say, ever ready to help. We had the honor of listening to her ideas about the South Sudan conflict in our college on 10th December last year. The large student gathering was spellbound for 1.5 hours. You can see the details of this lecture on our college site. She worked in Mumbai Police, in CBI, in the Anti-Corruption Bureau, in the UN mission in South Sudan. She also worked for the UNDP and has a tremendous field experience. She has conducted local elections in South Sudan villages where bullets and missiles were being fired from all directions and where the national law and order system had completely collapsed. She, with her multilingual and multinational team, successfully restored law and order. Million lives were saved. She has also received the President's Medal this year. I invite PI Dhanashri Karmarkar to enrich the gathering with her insightful remarks. Over to you, Karmarkar Madam.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. But the video...
Yes, because of the poor connectivity, I prefer to keep the video off. Otherwise, the voice will get cracking. We have some internet issues over here. Kindly excuse me for that. Okay. Greetings to all wherever you are. This is really very insightful webinar in a challenging time. Today we have listened from almost the world, almost all continents of the world, how they are facing, how they are feeling, and how they are trying to cope up with the situation at individual level and also at the organization and the country level. This spread of the COVID, particularly the COVID itself, is omnipresent, invisible, fast moving, and indiscriminate. It is just spreading like anything. It has no discrimination, whether rich country, poor country, caste, creed, nothing. And the main aspect of this is the human body is the carrier of this virus. Otherwise, our human body are carrying many virus, but this particular virus cannot coexist with us, and we are falling succumb to it. So all other viruses, like we know the malaria, Ebola, and all, someone else was the carrier. Like a mosquito was a carrier, a pig was a carrier, a chicken was a carrier. But in case of a COVID, a human being itself is a carrier. So that is why we have to be more conscious, because we can be the cause of it for the spreading of the virus. And that is the reason that the lockdown, social distancing, these are the primary solutions we could able to find out. All the medical solutions and other solutions will take a time, but until that time, we have to live with this. Now we have reached to the point, the generation of a human being, I have reached to the point that we can call it a pre-COVID era and the post-COVID era. Our life will not be the same the way they are before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. It has totally changed the way we are living. And why it has changed? Because of the many aspects, the way we are living and the way we are interacting with each other. Though the lockdown is considered one of the good preventive measures to constrain the spread, but it cannot be continued, because this COVID virus and the measures, it is not only the virus, but also the measures we have taken to, we as a world has taken to reduce the spread, have all kinds of impacts. Like we have been listening from all the speakers, it has the socio-economic impact, health impact, socio-economic impact at the individual level and at the society level. No one everyone is the one at one or the other level is getting impacted by this COVID-19 virus. So the precaution, more conscious living is really very, very, very important for us. That is why I said it is a pre-COVID era and the post-COVID era, so that we cannot be able to live the life the way we are. This generation of the human being, like 21st century generation, we have been living with the best infrastructure ever. But the way we have developed our life is like that the infrastructure is best, but the basic human body, which is carrying this or enjoying this infrastructure, we have taken the least care of this body. Our immunity system has gone down to such an extent that we cannot carry this invisible virus. Because as we have seen that this virus is really not as killer as it is. 48% is the recovery rate. The fatal rate and the infection rate, still there is a big gap, which is a good sign of it. And mainly it is because of our immune system. So the another way that till the time we could able to, we are so dependent on this ventilator system of the infrastructure health infrastructure and the technical infrastructure. Our lives are on the ventilator of this technical and health infrastructure. So one of the lesson what I can say is we have to stand at our own. Yes, we need some support, but going forward, we have to stand out at our own to make suitable us more immune body, more healthy and hearty life. Being a police officer, the police and the medical fraternity people are the most exposed to this particular virus. Even the infections and the fatalities among this section is increasing. But the interesting fact is, all these 3 months they are day in day out exposed to the virus, and comparatively the infection and fatality rate is relatively less. Of course, it is alarming, but it is relatively less. And one aspect of it is the spirit. No, we have to fight. This is my duty. I have to do that. So the positiveness is already helping you to bridge your immune system. Because literally, I have seen all my batchmates and all my colleagues in India and even the world. They are literally on the road. They have literally very, very minimal time for themselves to even take care of themselves, to have a proper sleep and to have the proper food. Even they do not have enough time for this. In spite of that, simply their high morale. No, this is our duty and we have to fight this collectively. So this positive attitude we have to take from them. We have also to imbibe in our lives as a daily routine. Because now the life are not same, we have to live with the virus. So instead of getting frustrated, getting disturbed, now we have to look forward how we can, if this is our now component of our life, so how come we can best adjust with it. As we all have seen that all of us have learned various lessons at our individual level during the lockdown period. Lockdown period is for all of us, as we have seen from the individual experiences, is really the eye opener for us. There are many things we have not done so far. We started doing that, particularly in the family. There are 2 aspects of it. Firstly, in the family, our sweet home, we simply because of the way we look at it, we ourselves feel that we are in the prison in our own sweet home, which is so ironical. Otherwise, we are literally craving that we don't get enough time, and now when we have enough time, we feel that it is suffocating me. It is really very ironical. So it is more of anything else than our own mind which is playing against us. The second thing is we are with our loved ones. In all this running life, we really did not have enough time to spend with our loved ones. So our sweet home, our loved ones is suffocating us. And now we have to learn this, that. So more than anything, it is our own mind which is not giving us the solace. Yes, there are medical aspects, there are economic aspects to it. But as a human being, first we have to see where we are and what we want. So on this front, because of this lockdown, we have really learned a lot of positive things also, like being at our own, yeah, helping in the home, doing the kitchen things, doing the laundry things, doing the cleaning things. So all these small things which we could able to catch up during this learning time, now we should keep it sustainable throughout our life for the sake of our own, for the sake of our family, and the same behavior we have to carry on when we live in the social life. I will not take much of the time because there are still many questions and answers which are coming up. I would like to really thank this panel for organizing this wonderful seminar. And I particularly, as all the participants are from the teaching fraternity, so our education system, while we go forward in the, we are still in COVID era. We are not in the post-COVID time. We are still in the COVID time. So still we phase out from the COVID to the post-COVID. We also have to concentrate on the how we can change our lives. In the education system particularly, we have made our life so economic oriented that whatever we teach right from whichever educational institution and whichever level, how to earn the money, it is so money centric than the human centric. So during this COVID lockdown period, what we have realized is our requirements are really not that big. In these 2-3 months, we could really able to live a happy life with a family with the minimum requirement. We have 3 times of the food, water, hygiene, and communication facilities, and that is all. We are really happy. We really did not wanted many of the things which we have been doing unnecessarily. From economic point of view, we have developed in such a way that most of our in this COVID period, the only economic activities which could able to continue is around the health sector, security sector, food sector, and communication sector, a digital platform also, the technology also. But rest all, if we can see the percentage-wise contribution, most of our other economic activities are at standstill. Meaning other side of it is, for our survival, do we really need it to that extent? So maybe from economic point of view also we can focus more on food, agriculture, hygiene, and communication. So there are many we can drop out, there are many we can pick up. So going forward, I really want even the teaching fraternity to, in addition to give the academic education to all students and the class, we also have to give them the education to be a human, to be a self-dependent in all aspects, not only the financial. Dependency is not only the financial independency, it is on all aspects. Psychological, mental, and just be a happy human being. I know this is really very, very, very tough time. I wish all the health sector and the security sector and all the governments, whatever they have been doing to make our life easy during these challenging times, I really have a sincere gratitude for all of them. And also we, the global community, who have been supporting this mass challenge, because collectively really we can fight off it. There is a bright future for us. Only our target for 2020 or maybe for 2021 is a survival. We have to survive these years, and not only we, but also the people. We have to make sure that people around us, we should support them for their survival also. So this is very interesting webinar, and thank you so much. Let me stop here.
Thank you, madam. So the fighting spirit, positive attitude, increasing your immunity in all possible ways, proper food and sufficient sleep. And the final main point is we have to live with this virus. So thank you very much, madam. Now again, I will try for Gopika Jagirdar, madam. If it is audible to you. I think she is yet not connected. You have to unmute yourself, Gopika Jagirdar, madam. So the next session, that is the question answer session. For this, we follow a particular protocol. If you have any questions, you put your questions in the chat box and our team will convey the questions to the panelists. So a few words about the team. The question and answer session will be conducted by our Vice Principal, Krishnan Nandela, and Dr. Prakash Sawant. Professor Nandela is a self-made man. He started his job with a job in Indian Navy, has good political connections and a good understanding of Indian politics and economics. He is alumni of our college, student of the first batch of our college, which started in June 1984. Dr. Sawant has an exemplary rank story to tell. He came from the rural areas of Pandharpur Taluka of Solapur, also my native district. He recently completed his PhD in commerce. Over to Nandela and Sawant. Participants can ask their questions, and Vice Principal Nandela and Dr. Sawant will handle the session.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can take over the session.
Yes, I am Krishnan speaking. I welcome once again all the participants and the guest speakers. And this session is now a question answer session. I welcome all participants to forward their questions. If you have any question, you may please put your question in the chat box, and we will try and get the answers to those questions.
Once again, I request to all of the participants, any questions? If you want to ask the questions, please put your questions in chat box.
There are queries about the feedback form and feedback link. So just a moment, I want to clarify all these things. We have a Telegram group for that. You don't need to go into the URL. You just search by Tope College International Webinar 15 June 2020. So you will get the group. So I request all the participants to join the group. And today by evening, you will get the feedback link. So please fill up the form. But now concentrate on the session and put your questions in the chat box.
A participant asked once again, sir. You
Yes. In Telegram, when you open Telegram, you have a search box. So put these words. You may write down Tope College International Webinar. It is logical. You can do it on your own also. Tope College, T-O-P-E, Tope College International Webinar, 15 June 2020. And you will get the group. Almost half of the participants have joined the group. So now all the remaining participants may join the group, and then you will get the feedback form there after completion of this webinar. So if you have your questions, you can go ahead now.
Once again, I appeal to participants. Now, can you share your experiences specifically in out of Maharashtra and out of country? If you want to share your experiences also out of state or another country, so you participate or your experiences also. Okay, over to boss, sir.
Professor Nandela.
I think there are no questions. It seems participants do not have any questions.
So finally,
so we may.
There is one question from Mr. Krishnan. I am working in South Sudan since December 2019. I would like to know more about how the government in South Sudan is handling the situation. This question is there in the box. And just now I could able to connect with the Gopika madam also. She had some internet problem, so she has conveyed her sincere apology, and she has told that just brief me about the situation in South Sudan. That South Sudan, as we know, it is a conflict country, and they also have more and more increasing cases. And as told by the Lalem, it is in the African countries, the healthcare system is really not up to the mark for even the of-COVID situation. So it is really a challenging time for the government also to support, to provide the due medical support. So Mr. Krishnan, maybe there are certain government sites on the South Sudan, and also there is an Indian embassy site also. From there you can get the more information, because right now we really do not have the information what exactly the South Sudan government is doing on that particularly. I can see one more question. We are feeling mental pressure, how to handle the mental pressure. That was from Priyanka or someone. About the mental pressure, as I have also said that it is more of the mental thing. Mental pressure, there are various ways to handle the mental pressure, to do regular exercise, as now you have more time for yourself, do meditation, breathing exercises, have the proper food, have the proper sleep, and think positively. These are the basic tips for keeping yourself happy, healthy, and out of the pressure. Thank you.
Any more questions? So all participants, we have your email. So we will definitely send the feedback link on your email, and then you will get your e-certificates. Those who have registered will get their e-certificates, but please fill the feedback form. So if the questions are over, we can move forward. What do you say?
Yes, boss, sir.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gopika. I'm sincerely my apologies to you. Anything at the last moment I'm joining, I'm unable to connect you all. Anything I can say that South Sudan has in a danger zone. There are 1640 COVID-19 cases and 28 deaths until now. The government is, there is lack of medical facilities, as Dhanashree is well said, and UNMIS is trying to support the government, providing all infrastructure, including the renovation of hospitals, the sanitizations, the masks.
Yes, Jagirdar madam. Hello. It seems you are again out of range. We can understand the situation.
I can see one more question. How could be educational loss managed after and during the COVID?
Very important.
Maybe the...
Yes, Dhanashree madam, you can continue.
I was just highlighting the question so that the educational fraternity people are around there. So I raised it to them. For me, educational loss is particularly the academic educational time. but particularly for a teaching, there is no loss. We can keep on learning many things in whichever situation we are.
Yes, online learning is one of the options, but it is very difficult, not suitable for all the students from various levels, various cities and villages, rural areas particularly. It is very difficult for them to communicate. Any other question? If the questions are over, I want to make two announcements again, that all the participants who have registered will get their certificate after filling the feedback form. The feedback form will be sent on their email, and it will be also available in the Telegram group. Many have already joined the group. Those who have not joined, they should go to Telegram, search for Tope College International Webinar 15 June 2020 and join the group. So you will get all the links and all the other information there. You can raise your questions even there also. So before concluding the session, or before the vote of thanks, a final word which should be never missed, as once P.I. Karmarkar had mentioned. Great amount of credit for organizing this webinar also goes to my wife, P.I. Renuka Bua. Because of her, I came in contact with P.I. Karmarkar, and then she helped to organize this event. She has a lion's share in all the arrangements. On a lighter note, as we come to an end, what I feel is these online webinars and meetings lack something. There is no physical presence and personal warmth, no abundant flow of chai by the chaiwala or the college pew, no lunches and no dinners, no canteen visits, participation of young and enthusiastic students in arranging chairs and halls and organizing the seminar during the preparation process. The bots are taking over and they are here to stay. The bots, the robots, the software, or the information technology, you can say. Everything has its pros and cons. The best thing is we come together. So many people from so many places. With this, I hand over the mic to Dr. Ashwini Torne, head of the Marathi department of Dr. T.K. Tope Knight College. Congrats to her as she has recently completed her PhD. A caring personality, a seasoned orator, a great aggregator with an ability to crack great jokes with a straight face and tranquil voice. One last thing, an edited version of this webinar will be available on YouTube from tomorrow. I tried to make it YouTube live, but technically somehow it was not possible, and as I have very limited time, I skipped that. But the whole webinar is recorded and we can put it on YouTube from tomorrow. You can have the link in the Telegram group. I have already told you how to join the Telegram group. Search for College International Webinar 15 June 2020. Over to Ashwini for vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. Respected principal, all honorable guests and participants. I, on behalf of Dr. T.K. Tope College and teaching non-teaching staff, extend vote of thanks to all of you. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Lalen
Kulkarni, please mute your voice.
Yeah. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Lalen Dinku sir, expressed his thoughts on crisis, especially in Nigeria, less medical technical facilities over there, and then even fight is on for the betterment of situation with the help of Basket Fund from UNDP. Thank you very much, sir. And thanks that you took out valuable time from your busy schedule. Thank you, sir. Then DYSP Gopika Jahagirdar madam, who is currently working in South Sudan, and tried to tell us about critical situation in Sudan, but due to technical issues, we could not hear you. Then even thank you very much, ma'am. All our dignitaries who shares their personal experiences, especially Parth Bhave from America. He told us about challenges and advantages of working from home. Then Lorenzo Berio sir from Italy, Chinmay Dhavre from Australia. Chinmay expressed his feeling that lucky to keep my job. I think this feeling is a universal feeling, and because of the jobless situation, we must be positive in this situation, because as Buddha said, everything is impermanent. So this situation and COVID-19 is also impermanent. So nothing to worry. I think we have to be very positive. Then thanks Sanyukta. Sanyukta Bua is a daughter of our today's comparer and our Professor Shubhraj Bua sir. She is feeling safe in Germany. That's great feeling for all of us. Then Rachel Peace, thank you very much. She is from Canada. Dhanashri Karmarkar madam, Police Inspector Dhanashri Karmarkar madam. She is actually, as a frontline warrior, she expressed her feelings that in spite of less sleep and less healthy food, all medical server and police force are fighting positively, and positiveness and high moral is helping to build their immune system. That's a great thing. And she also told us that all this game, all about is mind game. So let's hope for the best and keep ourselves very positive during this pandemic period. Madams, all points are really very much thought-provoking. Thank you very much. All our these guest speakers showed their interest and agreed to keep their views in very short notice. So truly thankful to all of them. I also wish to express my gratitude towards our principal, Bibi Rokde sir, Vice Principal Professor Krishnan Nandela sir, for providing encouragement and support and giving us an opportunity to organize this event. Special thanks to Professor Sawant sir, because for giving birth to this idea of webinar. And because of tremendous effort of Mr. Buasa's tremendous effort, we successfully enjoyed and participated and conducted this webinar. So big thank to Professor Buasa. Finally, I am very much grateful to you all listeners, participants. More than 200 participants participated from various parts of the country and outside the country. Thank you all you guys for making this event successful with your contribution. As Noam Chomsky said, Corona, COVID-19 is not actually that big problem in front of us in the comparison of global warming and world atomic war. It is an opportunity to rethink about humanity and to protect human values. So let's face together COVID-19 crisis positively, and let's show our deep gratitude towards our frontline warriors and real heroes, doctors, nurses, police force, for protecting us. Once again, thank you all for participating in this webinar and made it very successful. Thank you very much. Over to Boaz sir.
Thank you all. I think the webinar is over now, and we'll meet again in some other context. Thank you so much. We are now ending the webinar.